We live in a culture that teaches that we can take God and place him in any situation that we need him to be in, and that he will take care of all of the problems, everything that'll come to us through life. Hey everyone, this is Jonathan with HananiMinistry.com. I'm glad you could stop by once again to take a look at some of the scriptures here. This week I started doing a Bible study on the book of 1 Samuel, and it talks about Samuel coming up as the new prophet for the kingdom of Israel. What is interesting here is when I started to read in chapter 4, it shows that Israel goes into yet another battle against the Philistines. I had previously read in Joshua that Israel had gone up against other nations, and one right after the other, they defeated them with no problem because God was on their side. A lot of pastors today and some of our culture teaches that this is all we need to do, that if we believe in God and place God ahead of us in any situation where we are facing opposition and hardship, that God will come in and take away anything that comes up against us, take away all of our hardships, and that he will work for us. The Israelites thought that that was something that they could also do, but let's see how that plan works. For the sake of time, I'm just going to summarize real quick, but if you want to, I would encourage you at some point, turn to 1 Samuel chapter 4. The story comes from verses 1 through 10. Basically what's happening here is the Philistine army is coming up against Israel. Israel right now is in a state of rebellion and disobedience to God. They're doing whatever it is they want, and it even talks about how the high priest of the temple were doing the sacrifices not only incorrectly, but then sleeping with the people who were there to sacrifice. They were defiling the offering that was supposed to be given to God, something that was extremely holy. So at this time, Israel's not in a very good state of communion with God. What happens is that when Israel goes against the army of the Philistines and they go into this battle, they're defeated. Israel is like, God, why have you let this happen to us? You're supposed to be on our side. You're supposed to be our God. That is what we do a lot of the times in our own lives, is that we look at a situation and we wonder, God, where are you? Why haven't you taken care of this for me? What our society teaches is that we take God and we place him in the situation and let him take care of it all from that point on. That's exactly what Israel did. Before, in all their previous battles, God told them, when you go into battle, take the Ark of the Covenant with you and let it lead your army into battle. God hadn't told them to do that in this situation. So what they did was, without any direction from God, they took the Ark and they brought it into the battlefield against the Philistines. And they shouted and they cried out, yes, God will save us now, because the Ark of the Covenant is here in our midst. The problem that we see as we go closer to verse 10 is that Israel was still defeated. The Philistine army was still able to defeat the army of Israel. But why is that? It had worked before. They brought the Ark of the Covenant into battle. They defeated their enemies. They did it time and time again. They figured it was a formula. We take God, we take the Ark, we place it in the situation, and God will take care of the rest. But here's something that we need to realize, is that God does not honor disobedience. God does not honor rebellion. And that's the state that Israel found themselves in. Now I want to turn your attention over to 1 Samuel chapter 7. And I'm actually going to pick it up at verse 3 through 11, and we're going to look at something here. As I was going through this, I came up with something real easy to help remember the true way that we are supposed to view God in our everyday situations. And I put those up as the 3 R's: repentance, reverence, restoration. Okay? And that's what we're going to look at here. I'm going to first read through the entire thing, and I encourage you to follow along. And then I'll go back and show you guys the repentance, the reverence, and the restoration. Okay, so chapter 7, starting at verse 3, it says, And Samuel said to the house of Israel, If you are returning to the Lord with all your heart, then put away the foreign gods and the Ashtoreth from among you, and direct your heart to the Lord, and serve him only. And he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. So the people of Israel put away the Baals and the Ashtoreth, and they served the Lord only. Then Samuel said, "Gather all Israel at Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord for you." So they gathered at Mizpah, and drew water, and poured it out before the Lord, and fasted on that day, and said there, "We have sinned against the Lord." And Samuel judged the people of Israel at Mizpah. Now when the Philistines heard that the people of Israel had gathered at Mizpah, the lords of the Philistines went up against Israel. And when the people of Israel heard of it, they were afraid of the Philistines. And the people of Israel said to Samuel, "Do not cease to cry out to the Lord our God for us, that he may save us from the hand of the Philistines." So Samuel took a nursing lamb, and offered it as a whole burnt offering to the Lord. And Samuel cried out to the Lord for Israel, and the Lord answered him. As Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to attack Israel. But the Lord thundered with a mighty sound that day against the Philistines, and threw them into confusion, and they were defeated before Israel. And the men of Israel went out from Mizpah, and pursued the Philistines, and struck them as far below Beth-kar. Now what we see here is the 3 R's, like I said: repentance, reverence, restoration. Before, Israel was rebellious and just took the Ark of the Covenant, didn't worry about what God had said or what God had commanded in the past, and they just placed it in the situation and said, "God, take care of it for us." But here we see a different attitude as Israel realizes that doing it their way isn't going to get them anywhere. Verses 3 through 4 talk about here, Samuel judges Israel, and Israel says, "We have sinned." That's the repentance. That is step 1. It's when we realize that we can't do this on our own and that we do need God's help in our lives. We need to come before the Lord repentant. Notice, though, how it says that they had idols, and it wasn't simply that Israel just asked God for forgiveness. "Hey God, I've been worshiping this idol, sorry." No, they put those idols away from them. There are idols in each and every one of our lives, something that takes the place of God, and we put that thing before God himself. It could be a relationship. It could be the internet. It could be our jobs, our families. Anything that comes before God in our lives becomes an idol to us. And when we start to focus on that, more so than we focus on God, we see that we could possibly be in rebellion depending on what that idol is. Not saying that everything is an idol, but just saying that we need to keep things in perspective. The second part, reverence. If we drop down to verse 8, we see here, "And the people of Israel said to Samuel, 'Do not cease to cry out to the Lord our God for us, that he may save us from the hand of the Philistines.'" This shows a shift in thinking for the Israelites, because before it was the Ark of the Covenant that they wanted in their midst. But you see, the Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant when they brought it into battle the first time. They don't have it that they can bring into battle before them. Their reverence shifts from the Ark of the Covenant to God. They finally realize their position in conjunction with God. God is before them. They are the creation. And when this mindset comes, then they realize that it's only God who can save them from the Philistine army, not the ark, not an object, not an idol, but God and God only. When we place God back on the throne of our lives, God will come back in and do wonderful and magnificent things, but we have to put him there first. The last part is the restoration. It says here that while they were in this state of repentance, while they realized who God was in relation to them, and while Samuel was making the sacrifice, that the Philistine army came against them again. Only this time, because they had put away their idols, because they put God back on the throne, God came and restored them and defeated the Philistine army for them. You see, a lot of pastors and preachers and even our own culture tells us that, we can just call out to God and say, "God, I want to be successful. God, I proclaim your name over this situation." But the thing that they fail to tell each and every one of us is that as long as we are living in a state of sin and rebellion, God's not going to honor that. As long as we put our lives and our wants and needs before the will of God, He's not going to honor that. And so we may hope for restoration. We may pray for restoration. But if our hearts are still hardened and unrepentant, there's going to be no restoration. So for each one of you guys today that is a Christian, I encourage you that next time you face a situation that is hard and troubling, that you would look into yourself first and go, what is it in my life that I am unrepentant for? What is it that I am rebelling against God with? Am I even looking to God anymore as a reverent and holy God in my life? You see, guys, we claim to follow a strong and mighty God, but do our actions in our own lives reflect that? Do we reflect that reverence? Do we reflect the fact that we've been forgiven? Do we reflect the fact that God is God and we are not? We can all be restored, but we have to put ourselves back into our place and ask God for forgiveness for the things that we have done and the rebellion that we have shown to Him. I hope that this has helped in any way, shape, or form, and I encourage you to come back next week where we will once again look back into the Bible for something else the Lord may